taking Obamacare to the ballot.
From the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, Ron Bryant, news director for Bounce TV, Karen Kassler, State House Bureau Chief for Ohio Public Radio and TV, Dale Butland, Communications Director for Innovation Ohio, and Gene Krebs, former state legislator.
As it looks less and less likely that the Ohio legislature will expand the state's Medicaid program to cover more low-income Ohioans, it could be that voters will be asked to do it. Many Republicans don't like the key but optional component of President Obama's health care law, but Governor Kasich wants the expansion and the $13 billion federal dollars that come with it. He again made his case to reporters after speaking with advocates for the mentally ill.
You know, I've never been on food stamps and I've never lived in a car. But I know people who have. And so sometimes when things affect you personally, you get a better insight. But at the end of the day, things don't have to affect you personally in order to realize that we have an obligation to make sure that the poor and the disadvantaged and the addicted and the mentally ill, that they need help.
A ballot effort could have some deep-pocketed supporters. Hospitals seem willing to back a campaign because more Medicaid coverage means more low-income patients will have insurance. Karen Kassler, is this ballot plan a possible plan B, or is it a stick to get the legislature to act on this?
I'm not really sure. I mean, the coalition that you're talking about here, it's a huge coalition of groups that don't necessarily come together very often. Hospitals, Chamber of Commerce, and other business groups, social safety net advocates. This is a big group of individuals who often are on the other side of Governor Kasich's proposals as well. And so I think this is maybe a little bit of a carrot and stick approach, but I don't think the governor is actively involved in any sort of effort to try to put this on the ballot. I think he'd like to see it there because it certainly helps him as he goes into his re-election campaign, because polls do show that even though the Affordable Care Act still has some negative perceptions in Ohio, the latest Quinnipiac poll in March showed that indeed this Medicaid expansion is favored.
And this would, I mean, because the window is so short to get signatures, this likely would not be on this year's ballot. It would be on next year's ballot.
Yeah. Which is the same ballot that Governor Kasich is on for re-election.
So does that help or hurt the governor? Because Democrats, you'd figure, Dale, are going to come out for Medicaid expansion, but they may not vote for the governor. Yeah, well, he supports their position.
Yeah, well, his problem, of course, is not Democrats or independents. In fact, the irony of all of this is that the reason Medicaid expansion may not happen can be summed up in two words: John Kasich. Because by spending 2 years nonstop bashing and demonizing of Obamacare for partisan purposes, Governor Kasich has poisoned the well for Medicaid expansion with establishment Republicans. And with the Tea Party, he got them convinced that he was on their side, which when he flipped made it seem like that much more of a betrayal. Now he's got the worst of both worlds. He's got the Tea Party angry at him, and he hasn't convinced establishment Republicans to come on board.
Even though he consistently says this is not a tacit support of Obamacare as far as he is concerned.
You know, yeah, Karen, he says that, but look, now he's making the preposterous and nonsensical claim that he supports Medicaid expansion, but he still opposes Obamacare. People aren't fools. The legislature knows that Medicaid expansion is a key component of Obamacare. So he's still playing politics.
Ron Bryant, if this gets on the ballot, this really becomes a referendum. At least the opponents to Obamacare would make it a referendum on the president's health care.
Sure they will, but this adversely affects our community, and our community needs that help. We need Medicaid, but at the same time, I'm educating my community to the necessity for understanding what Obamacare is all about with the Affordable Care Act. I'm working with the folks here in Ohio that are running the point here in Columbus, so either way, our community needs it.
Gene, in 2010, voters by a 65-35 margin said, we don't like the insurance mandate. And whether that was an accurate reflection of how people really felt, they still voted it down. Would we see something different here with this?
I think two things you're going to see. First of all, my expectation is the General Assembly does not like to have to make very tough decisions. So the first decision they have to make is who to vote for Speaker, and after that they like decisions to be a little bit easier. What I'm expecting to see happen is that the General Assembly will take this Medicaid expansion issue as far as they can, and I'll give you a contrarian interpretation. They will then propose, and they will draft the language to go on the ballot in 13 this year for the Medicaid expansion, because if you wait too long, it's simply, you have to keep going back to the feds and going, mother may I. I don't think it's going to happen. Going back
so the legislature might put it on the ballot and not go through the signature process.
If I were to advise everybody, that's why I would advise, you've heard me say before on the show, drafting legislation is very tough to do. And that's why we have a two-chamber process. You have 4 caucuses involved, committees. It's a very elaborate process. I think that's why you get better product coming out of that process. The other thing I want to say, this kind of goes a little bit to Dale's point, the best political legislation that's passed, not the best policy, is what I call, if you heard me say before, the 85-50-1 rule. 85% of the majority caucus, half minority caucus, and signed by the one governor and or president. The problem with the Obamacare is that it was passed by a partisan issue in Congress. Conversely, now, if you want to see Medicaid expansion done, it needs to have about half of the Democrat minorities in both chambers willing to deal and come on board and say, we will vote for the budget.
Right. That's right.
Do you find it ironic, Gene, that you just said this is a tough decision for the legislature? Mm-hmm. Since when has it been a tough decision to accept $13 billion in federal money?
And I think what you may also be seeing here is...
is that really a tough...
You've made the point that they do it with ODOT and transportation money all the time.
You got it. I think if you look back over the past 20 years, and why do I choose 20? Because that's how long I've been hanging around this area, is that we've been passing on a whole lot of tough decisions for the past 20 years. And you look at what's happened with this budget, I think the governor, to a large extent, has overwhelmed the cognitive ability of the General Assembly to understand all of the change he's been throwing at them.
Oh, look, but when it comes to Medicaid, Gene, that is just baloney. As everyone has just said, $13 billion, saving the taxpayers $400 million over the next 2 years, thousands of jobs for hospitals, which are many times the biggest employers in a lot of towns and cities. This is survival for them. The problem is, this would be a no-brainer if we had normal politics, but we don't. All the Republicans want to do in the legislature is bash Obamacare, show how much they really, really hate it, and refight the last election.
And I think Gene may be onto something, though, that one of the people who's been quoted as being involved in this process, Scott Borgermanke, is a longtime Republican operative. So if anybody can bring coalitions together, these are the kinds of folks who could maybe put this into some sort of a ballot proposal and get it before voters. But this year is the key.
But when it's all said and done, the legislators definitely have to pass this and be proactive, because they stand the opportunity of losing that money if they don't act expeditiously.
All right, all this talk of Medicaid expansion and expansion of the sales tax and support for gay marriage has fueled talk of a Tea Party split from the Republican Party. The threats are primary opponents for Republican lawmakers in 2014 and even possibly a third-party candidate to run for governor, possibly taking away votes from John Kasich in his re-election bid. Gene Krebs, I consider you to be a mainstream Republican. If that's accurate or not, how worried are, quote, mainstream Republicans to this potential splinter?
Actually, not that worried. If you, having read Jennifer Bruner's book, Cupcakes and Courage, about her terms as statewide office and having run for statewide, I would say the Democrat Party also has its issues too. So I'm not so worried about one party suddenly getting ahead of the other party on any sort of internal dynamic tensions.
Would you compare I don't think the Democrats have a Tea Party wing. I mean, something comparable to that,
they have a true progressive base who wants to see some non-things. The thing to remember about the Tea Party folks is that, first of all, these are, according to work of Dr. Laura Brown from Villanova, these are the Perot voters of 1992. They're 20 years older, they're 20 years richer, and now they're organized via the internet. I think they represent what I would call the populist wing of the party. There are roughly three wings of the Republican Party. That is the Whig, W-H-I-G, which basically died in 1853, but has come back a long time ago, and what I would call the moral aspect of the party. You know, now is represented by the social conservatives, and then you have the populists. So
Let me make a couple of points. First thing I want to say, and I just want to get this out of the way because Gene is my friend, and Gene is a smart guy. And Gene, I know that you're smart enough. You're smart enough to know the difference between a noun and an adjective. We are Democrats, and our party is the Democratic Party, okay? That's point one. All right, now, with regard to the rift, make no mistake, this is real, and it poses a threat to John Kasich in 2014. Chris Littleton, who's one of the leading Tea Partiers, always says that this split is not just over policy differences anymore. It's become personal, and it's become emotional. And what are the dangers? One,
this is just another sign of the GOP's need to reorganize, and we see that reorganization in effect right now with the last few months of talk.
Karen, are the Tea Partiers organized enough to mount either a third party or a split or?
They were at the chairmanship vote meeting where Matt Borges was elected chairman. Tom Zawistowski, who is a Tea Party leader from Portage County, was running against him. And while they had a big group there, very loud, very vocal, he ended up losing 48-7. So they're definitely not in the operations of the GOP right now. But they're shopping around. They're looking around. And you've got high-profile Tea Party folks who are saying, we want to look at other parties like the Constitution Party and some of these other parties out there to see if maybe we belong with them rather than people who we don't think are conservatives anymore in the Republican Party.
Karen has put her finger squarely on it. The danger to John Kasich is not that the Tea Party will run as a third party, but if they join with the Constitution Party, with the Libertarian Party, whatever, they don't need to win. All they need to do is siphon 5 to 7% of the vote away from John Kasich, and in a close election, that can be the difference.
And they say they aren't concerned about that. The folks that I've talked to say that it's more about principle than it is about politics, and they're not worried about taking a victory away and handing it to somebody else that they really don't like.
But this is a thorn in the side of Kasich. We all have to agree to that. And the Democrats do have momentum.
Gene, you mentioned that these are the Perot voters 20 years later. Well, 20 years ago, you could argue that Ross Perot cost George H.W. Bush a second term.
Right.
So could that possibly happen with Governor Kasich's second term?
Two things. First of all, my apologies for getting the name wrong. The press, the stress of being underneath the bright lights here. I don't think it's going to have quite that much because at that point in time you had also a very emotional thing going on with Bush 41 also. I just don't see that because at the end of the day, they're not going. I do not see them supporting somebody. I do not see in America people very seldom throw their votes away. The 92 was a very unusual year, and I think also when Governor Kasich says that he was Tea Party before there was Tea Party, I think if I had to put the governor into one of these, I think I put him more into the populist wing of this particular party than I would the Whig, most definitely.
Can we agree on this? Even if you leave out the third party, if the Tea Party base is not enthusiastic, then they don't, they either stay home on Election Day because they just can't bring themselves to vote for Kasich or the Democrat, or if they're unwilling to knock on doors, do the literature drops and all the other stuff, that lack of enthusiasm could also hurt Kasich.
It could, but at the same time, if you look at how this state has generally worked, I think I'm personally, there are things I'm worried about. This one I'm not worried about. I think at the end of the day, and by the way, the Tea Party has brought a huge amount of enthusiasm to the GOP. I expect that, did I pronounce that correctly? I expect that they are going to once again come back and help again with that enthusiasm.
Aside from that true enthusiasm, what is the real strength of the Tea Party?
I think it is chatter, grassroots, emails. I think the Whigs provide the money.
It's the base. Okay. It's become the base of the Republican Party. I mean, look what's happened. Not just here in Ohio. John Boehner in Washington with the House of Representatives. The problem is, with the Republicans have basically encouraged the Tea Party. They have allowed them to push the GOP further and further to the right, and now they've created a monster that they can't control.
If the numbers are to be believed, they are the force in the party. Absolutely.
Our next topic, John Kasich may not need all of those new taxes to pay for the tax cuts that he wants. Income tax revenues are coming in much better than projected, and the state could end the year with a $1.5 billion surplus. Dale Butland, how much of this surplus should come back to the taxpayers in the form of either tax cuts or a rebate?
Well, you got to start from the beginning. The reason we had $1.8 billion in cuts to schools and local governments got cut about $600 million was because it was said tough economic times, there has to be sacrifice. Now, apparently, between fiscal year 2010, fiscal year 2014, state tax revenues are going to increase about 28%. So now the question becomes, what are they going to do with the money? Are they going to restore some of those cuts so we can get rid of some of these ballot levies? And the answer is no. What they're doing is they want to have another income tax cut that disproportionately favors the wealthy. And as the Hamilton County auditor just this week pointed out, and I've got a copy of it here, he's done a little analysis, and what he has found is that expenditures that the governor's office, the state Senate, the state House, and the Legislative Services Commission have had their budgets increase 17% over this period of time. So they're feathering their own nests, and they're giving money to the wealthy instead of returning some of this money to the taxpayers.
Real quick, what's the auditor's name in Hamilton County?
Dusty Rhodes.
Great name. What a great name in politics. Gene, now you spent a lot of time in the legislature. How can you be off by this much? Well, the economy hasn't just overnight started to boom. We've had some progress, but not...
First of all, let's go back a little bit. That 3 years ago, the governor, when he came in, had 89 cents in his rainy day fund.
As he's oftentimes reminded us.
And as I also want to correct one thing. If you compare the peak of the number of ballot issues in the Strickland era to the number of ballot issues we just saw this week, it's down by about a third.
That's not true. As it turns out, Innovation Ohio, innovationohio.org, has done an analysis. When you look at the new money levies, okay, not replacement levies, not bonds. If you look at new money levies, Gene, it's up about 23%.
And I will tell you that, my source is the Hannah News Service, which just came out with the report this week, and it's very clear: 191 versus 137.
Hannah is taking another look at that, and all I can tell you is stay tuned.
But how can we? Is the Kasich administration too conservative in their estimates, and that's why they're off by so much?
I think it's also because this is a progressive income tax state. The state has a highly progressive or aggressive, if you want to use that phrase, income tax structure. Those states that have that type of structure, when times are good, times are really, really good. And then when times go bad, times are really, really go bad. The question for Ohio is they have basically two choices. Either you go ahead and you flatten the income tax rate so it becomes less volatile in the receipts, or currently we have a 5% rainy day fund. There's actually some calls to take it as high as 15% because of the highly progressive income tax. Makes us vulnerable to swings.
So, Karen, what happens to this surplus? What's the talk in the legislature? Is it we can save more of these tax cuts that the governor wants than we possibly could have before?
I think the idea of the income tax cut as it is and then expanding it. You've heard Senate President Keith Faber say that he wants to expand it. They want to bring back that 50% income tax cut for small businesses that was stripped out of the House and Senate versions of the budget. So I think that money is going to be spent on tax cuts. And it's interesting, though, to see that even without the severance tax on oil and gas drillers, even without the expansion of the sales tax, there will be an income tax cut in the budget. There's almost certain. And it's not going to go back to local communities, I don't think. I think Kasich's made it very clear that he doesn't want to give it back to local governments.
Well, Brian, we've seen in the city of Columbus, the income tax went up and the money problems went away.
Right.
So tax worries about cuts in services, at least for the moment, seem to be over.
I don't think it's going to be the same thing for the state, although the money is starting to come in. However, with that $500 million payment from Jobs Ohio from the lease of the wholesale liquor operations and that spending that came in through Medicaid, I think Kasich is going to get a little bump on that. The state needs the money, and we need to at least let him know that the taxes are going to be okay.
But the other thing is that local tax receipts are also up $1.2 billion overall.
But that goes to what Dale was saying, is that they've had to increase the taxes because of property level.
And that is the point, is that in a time of surplus, can anybody explain to me why we're allowing this endless parade of local levies to continue? Why? Simply so we can cut taxes again in a way that disproportionately favors the wealthy.
Now, full disclosure, I serve on the Local Government Innovation Council, which is an unpaid position, to try to go ahead and get local governments to innovate. If I had to put my druthers as to where to put that money, I would put that money into getting more local governments to innovate, share services, and collaborate, and I would also look at some better data.
Well, Gene, all I can tell you is that local governments all over this state have done everything the governor asked them to do. They have consolidated services. They've consolidated purchasing. They've laid people off. They've had people increase their health care contributions. They've done all these things in the toolbox the Governor Kasich said they could do, and they're still coming up short, which makes sense when you cut them by $600 million plus another $250 million when we got rid of the estate tax.
There's 6,000 local governments. We've only had 200 applications for grants and funds, so I'd say there's a lot of work to do. It's a target-rich environment.
So the grants for consolidating and innovating.
Sure.
And you can at least be happy that the rainy day fund is up to limits.
Yeah. All right. Our final topic, Ohio Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor says she wants to take partisan politics out of judicial races. It's part of a judicial overhaul package she proposes. Among the changes, O'Connor would do away with partisan primaries, so no more party labels of any sort in judicial elections. She would move judicial races to off-year elections to give them more prominence, no more competing with the governor or the president's race. She would raise the basic qualifications judges would need to meet, and she would also lengthen terms from 6 years to 8 years, or possibly even to 12 years. Now, Ron Bryant, technically, Columbus City Council is a non-partisan election, but we all know that the Democrats survived the primary.
Right.
Can you really have a non-partisan election?
If they mandate it from the legislative standpoint, but I don't think that's going to be a good fit. I just want to know that they were at this dinner. What was she drinking Kool-Aid? Was that being served as well? I'm not sure, because I don't know if this is going to make any difference. Changing the law so that judicial races aren't always at the bottom of the ballot. Okay, we know that people look at the top and they traverse down, but is that really going to make a big difference?
I mean, the questions are at the bottom of the ballot, and we all know from Senate Bill 5 and all these gambling issues that people do pay attention to the things that are way at the bottom.
You can see the fall off. When you start looking at a ballot and you see, especially a presidential race, you see the number of votes, how they fall off as you go down the ticket.
But the reason for that isn't because they're at the end of the ballot. The reason is because Ohio voters, even though we elect judges, have no basis on which to compare the candidates, because the only thing the candidates are allowed to talk about are their names and their families and where they went to school.
You're talking judicial candidates.
Exactly. So what I would say is that as long as we're going to elect judges in Ohio, and the voters have made it very clear over the years that they want to do that, you can't take the politics out of politics. How I believe we ought to let candidates talk about their views, their politics, their worldview, not about specific cases, but about how they generally approach the world, because everybody knows judges, no less than any other person, comes to the bench with biases, with points of view, and so on, and voters are going to vote for people who share their values and their views because they think they're going to more often than not vote with them.
Gee, no primary, a good idea? No partisan primary anyway, but just top two get onto the final?
First of all, I don't think it's going to happen. Going to Ron's point about Kool-Aid, always ask in politics for ice in your Kool-Aid when it's offered to you. I think what's going on here is it's been alleged that Supreme Court Chief Justice O'Connor, during the last election, was taking then Justice Yvette Brown around to various law offices, introducing her and saying, this is a person you should support. I suspect, and I've been told this by the people, that she may be expecting a primary in 3 years. Now, this is a way to do Kobayashi Maru. This is Kobayashi Maru. For all those who are Trekkies out there, we're changing the rules of the game. And so what I think you're seeing...
It's a no-win scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Ohio Democratic Party issued a statement this week saying that they feel like this will harm voters, that this will end up with a blame game, or a name game rather, where the best names win, not candidates and stances on issues.
Which is more the reason why.
Which is different than how.
Yes, exactly.
Right, and more of the reason why those names and the parties should be involved.
So what happens? Does this go anywhere, or is this just, because we've heard electing judges, appointing judges, we've heard this all before, putting the D's and R's next to their names on the ballot, and nothing ever happens?
It goes nowhere, and it goes nowhere, again, because I say you can't take the politics out of politics. Look, everybody knows this. If judges did not allow their worldviews to impact their decisions, Democrats and Republicans would not take the trouble to nominate somebody, and the interest groups, doctors, chambers of commerce, organized labor, and so on, wouldn't spend millions of dollars to elect one and defeat another. They would all be interchangeable.
That's the money issue. Yeah.
We got to get to our off-the-record parting shots, and Gene Krebs, you're up first.
One of the most interesting things that's coming out is legislation introduced amongst them by young Representative Duffy here of Central Ohio that would actually give better data for local governments, because you can't manage it if you can't measure it.
Okay. Dale.
Well, you know, Mike, some things in life are more important than politics, and surely one of those is family. So today I'd like to give a shout out to all the moms out there, and especially to my incredible wife, Vicki. Happy Mother's Day, sweetheart. The 5 kids and I love you more than we can possibly say. You are the best.
Aww.
Oh.
Aww. Wow.
Karen?
All right, I'll try to top that. So I know this is technically a preview segment, what's coming forward. I'd like to spend a moment to actually look back a little bit. Last Friday, we said goodbye to our colleague Bill Cohen with Ohio Public Radio and Television State House News Bureau. Almost 40 years of broadcast State House journalism, an extraordinary feat in and of itself. Excellent work. He's irreplaceable. And this week he got a special honor. He got to throw out the first pitch at the Clippers game on Monday. Right after he threw out the first pitch, they called the game. So I would like to argue that Bill Cohen threw a perfect game for the Columbus Clippers on Monday, May 6th.
Ron, real quick.
Well, the Columbus Urban League is in jeopardy of losing their money for their Head Start programming. And I know what you're thinking. The problem is with the current regime. Well, it's not their problem. The problem is that they have cleaned up the operation, and they should be granted their money.
All right. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. Continue the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter. Also streaming video of all episodes at wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.